Hi, besties and bosses. How are we doing? Let me pull this up in the group. I am great, but I don't usually do this. I taught a private class just before this. It was the only window because I have client calls all day. Only window I could teach this private class, and I'm like, we're doing this back to back. Hopefully, my voice holds up. So I'm kind of rolling into this after this. Usually, I do have notes for us, but usually I have a little bit more of my notes and prep, and we're gonna see how my voice holds up for this call and how or this live stream and how we go through this. But this is an important topic. I've been wanting to chat with y'all for a while about two internal shifts my clients make to turn their business results around fast. Before we dive into that, a couple of things. First, my Florida people, are you okay? Are you evacuated? I feel like last week we were talking about, is it Helene? Is that how you say it? Hurricane Helene. Everybody got affected there. I know y'all are still down south, still navigating that, and my heart is. It's so hard when you're far away when all we can do is donate. I'm going to drop a link for the Red Cross again for those of us who want to donate. And I know Florida's about to get hit again, so just thinking about y'all. I hope you are all okay, evacuated. Please stay safe. Yeah, it's just wild. I think the hurricane is actually going to run. My mom is in the Netherlands right now, but she lives in Florida a lot of times, so I think it's actually going to hit her house, but she won't be there. So that's what happens with these things. Okay, hi, if you are here live, let me know if you're here. Do we have a giveaway today? I think we actually don't have a giveaway today. But if you say hi, we can still do a giveaway. Put something from my website, one of my done for you services or done for you products. Okay, so let's talk about the two internal shifts my clients make to turn business results around fast. So I wanted to bring this up now because first of all, we are in Q4, which is blowing my mind a little bit. And I feel like this has been such an interesting year. So I've been in business for 8.5 years. And I think this year more than any other year, I don't know, I feel like 2020 with COVID, everybody was saying it was a dumpster fire, but I feel like this has been the year I've had more people just be like, what the F is going on in business and online, and more stressed out clients or more people hire me from that place. So whether you are on track for a record breaking year this year or record breaking quarter, if so, we are so celebrating you. Or if you feel like you deserve a medal for getting through this year because it has felt like what just happened. I just want to say you do, and I feel like we can all agree that the online space has just changed and shifted a bit, and with that I think it can rock some of us in different ways. And I think my coach at the beginning of the year, Lacey Sight, shout out to her, predicted this would be the year we would see more people leave or exit the online space and business since the boom we saw in 2020 than any other time. I don't know what the stats are, but we've probably seen that to be true. So I would say, and I think I said this in the email, there's obviously, if you decide you got into business and you decide business is not for you, there's no shame in that. I think we have such a weird thing how we like put entrepreneurialism up on a pedestal. I love it. It's right for me. It's right for my clients. I think it's beautiful to run your own business. There's also absolutely nothing wrong if you decide you don't want to do business and you want to have a 9 to 5 or something like that. One is not better than the other. I always think about this when I think about when I acted for 10 years in LA and I made that transition. That was right for me for 10 years. Then when I made that transition, it wasn't like, and therefore acting is worse or bad or having a business is worse or bad, right? That was just making the right decision for me at the time. So if you have exited the business world and space, I hope that feels like a really good decision. And if you're still here this year, again, whether it's been your best year ever or it has just felt like you're holding on by a thread, I just want to say I see you, and just to normalize, I hopefully have done a decent job of that this year, normalizing that's going on. I just want to normalize, like I see you, and I think that's just something to be so proud of and to so celebrate. I said this to a client, I think yesterday, what we're experiencing this year. And I think, myself, I've rode this wave very easily. Most of my clients have rode it very easily, but it has still been a wave. And what I said to my client is, we should be so proud that we're riding these waves the way we are, but we should also remember there's going to be another season that is like 2020 where it feels super easy and that's a super peak, but that also means there's going to be another year like 2024 sometime in the next 10 years. And so I think that's where we start to build our resilience as business owners, when we can see that even when it's a funky year or a more challenging year, the economy, the industry, whatever is going on, and more people are exiting the space, and we can see we can still be stable, we can still make that predictable income, we can still trust ourselves, we can still show up, we can still have success. I think that's where we build the most trust and resilience in our business. And so I think there's also such a gift in that we want to remind ourselves and to celebrate. With that, I know this is also because of all of this. This has been the year I think more people have hired me because they had business success and this year rocked them and they were like, I do not know what the F is happening to my business. And I've had more clients hire me or rehire me. I've had quite a few clients rehire me who, we'd worked together, they'd created some success, and then things had shifted because of the industry and rehired me to turn things around. And people who had never hired me before for that reason. And obviously, we've talked this year a lot about more of the marketing side of things and the shifts to make there. But there are 2 internal shifts that I have focused on with these clients, and 2 internal shifts that really, I focus on myself and that I just see make such a difference to your results. And I'm just thinking about 1 or 2 clients in particular who have really focused on these internal shifts we're going to talk through. And it is these shifts. It has been fascinating to see how quickly they've turned things around. One of my clients just got fully booked, just had her first 10K cash month. She made something like $11,000 in a week or 2 weeks or 2 days, something crazy. She's having, it is really wild how quickly and fast she has grown. And it's also not wild because success leaves clues, and really she had something that was working already, and we made these internal shifts, and that's what turned everything around. And so wherever you kind of fall in the spectrum of results this year, however you feel about 2024, I think what we want to remember is that businesses are going to ebb and flow. Industries are going to ebb and flow. There's always going to be things that rock us. And when we can understand how to navigate that, that is really what allows us to continue to get good results. And so I want to break down those 2 internal shifts because, again, this is what I focus on to be able to stay really consistent, make consistent revenue. I always forget where I'm at, but I think we're at either 63 or 64 months of consecutive 10K to 40K cash months. Currently, it's more like 25, 30 to 40K cash months. It's been that way for about 2.5 years. I think that's just, the reason I share that is not to brag. The reason I share that is it is just so consistent, and that's despite what's going on in the industry, but it's because of these internal shifts, because that's what I've had to work myself. And again, this is what I work on with my clients. I just want to see if we have, okay, no comments here. So let's jump into these. So the first internal shift, and I don't know a better way to describe this, I am calling this I'm back energy. And the reason for is one of my clients literally has said so many times in Basecamp, I'm back. Oh my gosh, I'm fucking back. I am back. And it is the shift of being able to feel like I'm back. And I'm going to break down what I mean by this and why this is so important. What I find happens when we have things that rock us in our business, whether that is the economy, whether that is the industry, whether that is marketing changes, whether that is, challenges with a client or with a team member, right? It can be, maybe we've gotten sick and we've had to pull back, right? There's all these different things that can happen that can rock us in business. And what I find happens for a lot of us when we sort of lose our footing and momentum is we tend to start to lose our confidence, and we kind of forget who the fuck we are. And we stop trusting some of the things that we really were trusting before. And we tend to forget that the reason so much of what worked before isn't because of tactics or flukes, but it's because we really had some trust in ourselves, in our work, and in some fundamentals in our business. And so when things again rock us, what I start to see is, and the reason this client was saying I'm back is really what was true is she's great at what she does. Her business maybe felt like it was unstable and rocky, but really just a couple of things had gotten shaken up. But what would really happen is her core, her trust, her confidence had gotten completely rocked. And that's where the unravel started to happen, because as soon as we stop trusting ourselves, as soon as we, I need a little sip of coffee here, because I'm feeling it in my voice, y'all. As soon as we stop trusting ourselves and as soon as we lose some of that confidence, and I want to speak about confidence in a second here and what it does and does not mean, we start showing up differently, right? The story we tell ourselves is so wildly important, and it really impacts how we start to show up, the action we do or don't take. I'm sure I've said that on like every other live stream, but it also really starts to impact the stories we are making out of the situation we are finding ourselves in. So when we find ourselves in a situation, I keep using the industry as an example, so let's use a different example. Let's just say you had a really challenging client or situation and someone who defaulted on a payment, or you had a really challenging team situation and you lost a team member, or you had to fire someone. when we've lost that self-trust, when we have lost that remembering who the fuck we are, right? When we have lost that, and I really want to say trust instead of confidence, because I think we'll come back to confidence. I have some beef with the word confidence or using that word. So we're going to go with self-trust. When we lose that, we start seeing situations that actually are small pebbles. They're not huge waves, right? They're small pebbles being thrown into our water, and they're making little ripples. They're not big waves, I guess is more the way to say it. But we start to see those small ripples from that little pebble. We start to tell ourselves a story. It is a huge boulder and it is a huge wave, and everything is going to fall apart. And as soon as we start telling ourselves that story, that starts to affect everything we do. And so much of what I'm supporting my clients with is finding how to come back to the self-trust, finding how to come back. This is literally why my client was like, I'm back. How to come back to this place of remembering, and I just don't know a better way to say it, remembering who the fuck you are, who the fuck you are. Like, I think we just sometimes forget that. And when we forget that, right, we are at the mercy of that boulder and the wave. But what we forget is we through that boulder and we created that wave. It was never a boulder, it was never a wave, it was a pebble and a ripple. And what we did, because we lost our sense of self-trust, because we lost who we are, we created a new story, we created a new meaning that spun us out, and we went and dove into the water and found the biggest effing boulder we could get, and we smashed it in the water and made the biggest wave, and then used that wave as evidence against ourselves, right? We weaponize it against ourselves to tell ourselves all the reasons we can't have what we want, and it sucks, and it's impossible. And then that starts to impact, it is literally a ripple out effect. It starts to impact everything, right? We stop showing up. We show up differently. We start getting really perfectionistic. We start overworking our content. We start saying weird stuff in our content because we're projecting, we're in our stuff, right? We start pulling back on selling. We start getting pushy and desperate in our sales conversation. It starts to affect everything. And then what happens is, because it's starting to affect everything, that validates for us that boulder we went and dug and found and dredged up and threw and made a huge wave from, it validates for us that was correct. And so instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I just forgot who the fuck I was, and I just got in my own way and just created a big fucking wave and made all of this shitstorm happen, we're like, no, thank goodness I found that boulder and smashed it, because we start to get evidence back, right? When we start showing up funky on our sales calls, when we start showing up desperately, when we start not trusting ourselves, when we start saying weird stuff in our content, not to give anyone shade, but we just can all do this, right? When we stop showing up altogether, we decide to go hermit and hide, any of the responses we can have, and then we get the results that match, which mean no leads, no clients, money dries up, right? We don't have a pipeline. It feels like it's so hard to crank the wheel. It feels like it's so hard to come up with ideas. It feels like it's so hard to get into momentum, probably because it is, right? That just all seems like evidence that the story we told ourselves was true. What we forget is, actually, this is evidence that the story you told yourself created your reality, and you showed up that way and created basically a craptastic situation. And so this is why when I find clients who are struggling a lot, one of the things we really look at is, how do they get to that place of I'm back? How do we get back to building that self-trust? How do we get back to them remembering who the fuck they are? Because when you have that, you can have an actual boulder instead of finding the boulder and throwing it in the water. You can have an actual boulder go create a wave or a ripple. But when you remember who the fuck you are, you start to see that and you tell a different story, and you're like, oh, well, I don't have to get smashed by a wave. I can ride that wave. I know how to surf. Like, good on, like, this is great for me. If this is so screwed up, but I just like to tell you all how it is. I said this to my coach recently. We were talking about the industry. We were just talking about how, like, it's just a time where you just have to show up a little bit more. I think it just does matter. We have to have better marketing. We have to show up. Not more like harder work, but I think it takes more work to be intentional, and we just have to have better marketing than we ever have. And basically it was sort of like, it just require a little bit more work to get results now. I think for some people that would feel like a boulder, right? Where it's like, and I'm going to get crushed by the wave of that. But when you remember who the fuck you are, when you're back, right? The way my brain internalized hearing that, I was like, oh, great. bring it. I was like, this is my Olympics, because I love learning strategy. I love digging in. I love marketing. I love mastering stuff. Like, I will outmaster anyone. That's cool. If that's the game we're playing, I'm here for that. And I will win this game all day long. And I'm reflecting this here to you because it's the same situation. It is the same boulder, right? But I didn't go find a boulder and throw it in the water and create my own wave, right? Like, let's just say that's the real boulder that got thrown in. At the end of the day, it's still all about what we make that boulder mean. And when we're backing ourselves, when we feel like we're back, when we remember who the fuck we are, I think I've been talking a lot about backing yourself, right? We see that boulder, we see any situation, we see any big wave, and we're like, oh, well, it's not that it's not a big deal, but it's just, I trust myself. I got that. And therefore, then that is what we go out and create to be true. And that's why I don't think I'm a special snowflake, but I do think that is my mindset and that is my internal shift. And I do not think I had that internal shift 6.5, 7 years ago. I think there was a time in my business where anything, like literally a pebble through me, made me feel like I was the biggest piece of dog shit in the entire world. And I just so got in my own way. But because I've shifted that so much and I have so much self-trust and I back myself so much and I just remember who the F I am, right? An actual big boulder can throw in and it's just like, oh, well, that's just, so there's just a big wave. Let's figure out how to ride it. Like, I'm here for that. And then therefore I show up differently and then therefore I get different results. And I really think that's one of the reasons why I've ridden the wave of the past year or two that's been funky in our space. And if I didn't know what was going on through clients and that sort of thing, I don't know that I would be, I would be aware of it, but I don't think I'd be aware in the same way. I think that's one of the reasons we've stayed fully booked and why we've continued to get the results we do. It's not because I have some secret strategy. It's not because I have some secret like manifesting hack where I don't know, twirl around 5 times and have, I said this on the class I taught earlier, and like, I don't put crystals in my bra and twirl around and put like fairy dust on myself and like jump 5 times and then therefore this thing happens. So if you have a ritual like that, have at it. I'm for rituals. I'm for whatever works for you. I'm not mad at crystals. I got one on my desk. But the point being is it's actually because I trust myself. It's because I back myself. It's because I'm back, right? I have that I'm back energy, and that makes all of the difference. And I think that is just such an internal shift that changes everything externally. Again, going back to my client, the reason she has said so many times in Basecamp, I'm back, she's saying that in, and Jay says, I love that. How do you get back to remembering who the fuck you are? And Jay, thank you for being here. And Jay, oh my gosh, I have a message from you too I need to respond to. Horrible DMs. And thank you. You just reminded me I need to reply to you. Because I saw that earlier today before I got on my other class. Just making a mental note, please feel free to message me again. I'm horrible at keeping up with DMs. But my client, let me just go back to this because I think it's important. One of the reasons my client, if I pulled up Basecamp, I'm sure it's in there multiple times. She shares a client win. She's like, oh my gosh, I just booked another client. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe I just made, it's like $11,200 in X amount of time cash. Oh my gosh, I just had my first 10K in cash a month and surpassed that. Whatever, all of these things. And then every time she's like, I'm back, baby. Oh my gosh, I'm so back. I am freaking back. I'm back. And the reason she's saying that so much is twofold. One, I think she's reinforcing that, but I think it is because all of the work we were focused on, not all of it, but a big part of the work, we'll speak to the other side, was she always knew how to do this. This was not something that, just like all of you, we all are so much more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. We are all so capable. It's just when we get spun out, when we don't trust ourselves, we forget who the F we are and we give our power away to everything but ourselves, right? We give our power away to the made up stories about the pebble and the ripples, right? And we feed into those stories and we give our power away to everybody online and to all the things we hear, as opposed to taking our power back and having a pebble and some ripples or a boulder fall in and telling ourselves the story that supports ourselves. And when we have that self-trust back, it just changes everything. This client is such a good example. We absolutely looked at her strategy, but the shifts they're minor tweaks, right? A lot of times when I'm supporting clients, we're making 1 to 2 degree shifts. Sometimes clients need really big shifts. Sometimes we're building something from the ground up. But a lot of times, especially this client has had results before. They just sort of seemed like they disappeared. And then it seemed like they came out of nowhere. They didn't come out of nowhere. She just forgot who she was. and she remembered who the F she was. And now that she's back in her power, right, it is just changing the way all of her results are. In fact, she just shared another result with me in Basecamp, and one of the things that reflected to her is this result, sales call. You're welcome, NJ. This was someone she had connected with before we started working together. And what I reflected to her is I said, I think it's just so important for you to see your strategy was always working. The big difference is you're showing up differently, right? What you're doing now, like, and yes, we've shifted some things for her strategy, so that's helping pull people off the fence, but she's also showing up differently, and she's approaching challenges differently. And we have all, I mean, all of us know what this is like. It doesn't matter how evolved and all the mindset work you've done. We've all been in that place where something happened and rocks us, whether it's in business or with parenting or with friendships or with our parents or with our fitness and with our health. And it just rocks us to our core. And when it rocks us to our core, it's just like we forget who we are. And it's like we forget all of the power we have and we stop trusting ourselves. And it is fascinating how when that happens, it's like we become self-defeated. I think about it like learned helplessness a lot. It's like we get learned helplessness. Does everybody know the concept of learned helplessness? I feel like I've taught this before on this class, but learned helplessness, real quickly, I'll just give like the Cliff Notes version. They did horrible studies with animals, but basically what they found is you can train animals. What they did is they would shock animals when they went to like get a certain lever, try to get out of a certain cage. They just shocked them all the time. And basically what they taught them is if you even try to get out, if you even try to get food, if you even try to get the thing you want, you're going to get shocked. And so they taught these animals basically they couldn't, like nothing they did would work, so that even when they opened the door to the cage and there was no electric shock and there was nothing that could harm the animals wouldn't even try to escape because they had learned to be helpless. They had learned that anything they did just got them shocked and didn't work and kept them trapped and was horrible. And so even when there was nothing in their way, even when the door was open, it was like, you can just run out, get everything you want. Nothing will shock you. The animal doesn't know, right? The animal is just like, I just feel defeated. Why even bother and try? And this is a symptom that will happen for a lot of us as humans in different ways. I think, I don't want to like go too far down a rabbit hole there, but I see this happen in business so often. We will get rocked by something, or in personal life, right? We will get rocked by something. And if we get rocked enough, without feeling a locus of control, without feeling like we understand why, without feeling like we just feel like we keep getting zapped, right? Every time, right? And we don't understand that the industry has changed, or we don't understand we have to make some changes with our marketing or messaging because things have just shifted. If we don't understand, actually, you're not crazy. There is a big wave and you need to learn how to ride it. Like things have just shifted a little bit. We're like, I just keep getting knocked down, right? We will start to have learned helplessness in business. And so all that really happened with this client, what's happened with a lot of my clients this year who've rehired me, and I've just really seen their results shift around. They've just had a form, essentially, of learned helplessness where they just forgot who the fuck they were. It's like those dogs just forgot what kind of fucking dogs they were and what they were capable of. I hate animal studies like that, but I think it's a good, I mean, this is an old school study, I think, before we had some of the protection for animals in the same way. But the lesson there is still the same. We just sometimes forget them. We forget the power we have. We forget to trust ourselves. And so even when things shift and change, or even when it's just a small pebble, right? If we just have that learned helplessness, if we just believe nothing we do works anymore, then it can just be a small pebble, or we can create our own pebbles and rocks and throw, our own boulders in our own way. But we just have that learned helplessness and don't think we can do anything to change it. And so when we can remember who the fuck we are, I'm glad that landed for you, NJ, and I hope it lands for everybody else. When we can remember who the fuck we are and get back to trusting ourselves a little bit, get back to seeing we actually have a locus of control. We can tell ourselves the story that supports us, and we can go and take action, and we can actually figure things out. Most things are figure outable, right? We can figure out how to ride that wave instead of being rocked by that wave. That changes everything in business. And that is really just the big shift, again, that I see over and over again. If you're that dog in the cage, right, that doesn't have learned helplessness, we can just think about how, like, literally how different that is. Then when the cage door opens, you just walk out and you think nothing of it, right? Nothing. Otherwise, you're stuck in a cage, essentially of your own making, and the door is open. Is kind of what happens there. So that's the first big internal shift. And I know, NJ, I think you were just reciting this, like, how do you remember who the fuck you are? But I do think that's actually a really great journaling question. If you feel like maybe you're in a place where it feels like you've had some of that learned helplessness, or it feels like maybe like the rocks and the boulders in the industry are just feeling like they're beating you down, I would really invite you to ask yourself, who the fuck are you? Like, can you remember who the fuck you are? Can you dig down a little deep? If you started your own business, I know, I say this to clients all the time. This is where we're going to come back to confidence. This is where I have a little beef with confidence. You do not need confidence to get results. Confidence is a byproduct of taking action and getting results. Confidence is what we get after doing stuff and seeing we can figure it out. But I think we have this like fucked up thing in the online space. We talk about imposter syndrome and all of this stuff where we think we just need to be so confident to be able to get a result. I'm going a little off on a tangent, but I'm going to circle this back around to what we're talking about here with remembering who the fuck you are. And what I want us to remember is you cannot have confidence in something and still get great results, but you need to have confidence in yourself in terms of I trust myself, I back myself, I trust myself to not be helpless. I trust myself to figure some stuff out. I trust myself to see that big wave and to ride it, or to, if it rides over me, I trust myself to get back up. As opposed to, I'm going to give all of my power away and create stories, right? That is where we do need some confidence, but you don't necessarily have to have confidence in like, you are the best person in the world and you're going to make $1 gazillion in 3 seconds flat. That kind of confidence is actually arrogance, and that's not even imposter syndrome. It is not imposter syndrome if you have not done something before. That is just simply you have not done something before. And that sort of confidence is just earned. It is just a byproduct. I am confident now going live because I have gone live a gazillion fucking times. That's the only reason why, right? But when I first went live, I was not confident in my ability to go live. I was not confident in my ability because I also wasn't an imposter. I just hadn't done it before. But I was confident and backed myself. I was confident in myself to figure it out. I was confident in myself that even if I sucked and fell on my face, I would do it again. And I was confident in myself to keep doing this until I could get good at live streams, just like selling, just like lives. When I had to first navigate a challenge with a client or with a team member, when I had to let a team member go for the first time, I wasn't confident that I knew how to do that because I'd never done it before. But I was confident in my ability to back myself, to show up and try anyway, to figure it out, to even fall on my face, like pick myself back up. And that is what I want you to remember, because when it comes back to now, remembering who the fuck you are, that's who I want you to remember. Like, can you remember that self-trust, that internal part of you that believes you are someone who can figure stuff out? You are someone who is resilient. You are confident in your ability to figure out your business, to get results, even when there are some rocks or some boulders or some things happening. That's the confidence. I mean, that is confidence, but I just think we hear confidence and we think it's that other kind of almost arrogance. That's the type of confidence I want you to remember and dig back into. And I will call such BS on anyone who's like, I don't have that, I never had that. If you have started a business, even if you started a business and had a hard time putting yourself out there because of all of the stuff and all of the reasons that can come up for all of us, if you have started a business, you have at least this much self-trust and confidence and belief in yourself. Otherwise, you would have never started a business. I know if you started a business, you have that, right? You just might not have all of the confidence and all of the skill sets and abilities, because those are earned as you learn them. And the way we earn and learn them is by having confidence and self-trust and backing ourselves to show up to do the thing, even when there's challenges in our way. And when we can come back to remembering who the fuck we are, we're like, wait a second, I am someone who started a business. That means I'm someone who backs myself. That means I'm someone who trusts myself. That means I am someone, like, I am already different than 95% of the people out there, right? That says so much about me. When I can remember that, when I can get back to that person who's excited to start this business and get out there, that's the person I want you to remember who the fuck you are. Like, I want you to remember that person when you see challenges in your business, because then you're going to tell yourself a very different story. When you can tell yourself a different story, when challenges present themselves, you handle those challenges differently, right? And then when you have the cage and there's some shocks, you're not going to give up. And then when the door is open, you're not going to sit there giving up in the corner. You're going to be like, wait a second, I can just get out this cage. I just want to see if there is. And Jay says, I've been saying I needed to do this for a while, and that phrase just really landed for me. I'm so glad. Sometimes it's like we just need to hear something said a certain way. I totally know what you mean, NJ. Like, there's certain things. I just have my coffee for my throat, but there's certain things for me where it's like I know the concept, but like there's certain like phrases that just like land the plane. So glad that landed the plane for you. And maybe it's just helpful for everyone because I think we talk a lot about, I know I talk a lot about self-trust. I know it's talked about in our space a lot. For me, self-trust, I understand the concept and I think it's so important, but I find it's almost like a nebulous concept to latch onto. But when I think about remembering who the fuck I am, that's something I can latch onto. I'm like, oh, right. Same with confidence. I think I think confidence is so important, but I think it gets muddy, right? With the way, for the reasons we were talking about. But when I think of it as like, wait a second, I don't remember who the fuck I am. Right. That it just, for me as well, and Jason, glad it lands for you, but like, it just helps me to understand concepts that I think can feel just a little out there otherwise. So that is the first internal shift that if you make that internal shift, this is literally what turns things around for my clients, and it can turn things around for you. Like I just really do know that. The other piece, and then I'm going to share the other internal shift they make. The other piece of confidence I wanted to say, it's confidence in self, and it's confidence that strategy can work and your business can work. And I think that is very different than confidence that we need to earn based on doing something, right? So I can be confident in myself to go live, even if I've never been live before. So I might not be confident going live because I've never done that before. I might be wobbly going live because I've never done that before, but I can be confident in myself. I can back myself to learn that. And then I can also be confident in the strategy, right? That strategy works, right? So I can also be confident that, well, live streams just work, right? That is just a strategy that works. There is just enough evidence out there that if someone masters going live, it's selling for them, right? Like this is just a strategy that works in business. And so that's also when we talk about confidence, those are the types of confidence I want you to think about. Can I have confidence in myself to show up and do this thing and figure this thing out, even if I suck at it, even if I fall on my face? And can I have confidence in the strategy, in this thing itself, that it can work? Like it just works for people and it can work. I think it's when we lose confidence on those that we get into hot water in business. You do not need confidence in terms of, you do not need to feel like you are the most amazing person at things at all, because that is something that is earned and learned. And that is something you will get over time, but you're not going to have that on the front side of something, right? I couldn't be a confident coach after 4 coaching sessions. That's not confidence. If I was like, I'm such a great coach, you should hire me, I've only had 4 coaching sessions, that's not confidence. That is arrogance. That is delusion. I'm here for some healthy delusion, but that's not actually confidence. But I can have confidence in myself that this is something I can figure out, that I have some natural skill sets that would lend me to be a good coach, that I can see after 4 coaching sessions, oh, I'm really onto something. I'm like doing pretty decently here. And I can also have confidence in coaching as a tool set and coaching as something that is learnable and a skill set that it is something that works and that I can get really good at. Hopefully that difference makes sense. So again, we're remembering who the fuck you are. We're remembering that type of confidence, not the like fake confidence that will actually hold you back. I was just talking about this with another client. When we think we need to be fully confident in what we do, or confident in our offer, or confident in all of these things before we've actually implemented, I find that this holds a lot of us back because we're trying to get answers and confidence in advance of what it requires for us to take action on to get those answers and to get those results and to get that confidence. That's why I really want you to understand that difference. I hope that nuance makes sense. Let me know if not, or if you have any questions about that. Otherwise, I'm going to share this other internal shift. So the other internal shift that has been huge for my clients. I have a client who just celebrated a 28K cash month. So she made 28K in 30 days. And I don't know for sure, but I would bet money if you were to ask her, one of the biggest things that helped her to have that shift and to make that money would be what we're going to talk about here, this internal shift. I would say for me, this has probably been the biggest thing that has supported me from my early days in business that I lovingly refer to as my struggle bus days to now having been fully booked for 5.5 years and making 63 consecutive 10K to 40K cash months and 1.5 million in the last 5.5 years. I sometimes have to pause. I'm like, where are we at in our results? But this right here I'm about to share has probably been the biggest game changer for me. And I see this for my clients. And that is really starting to identify when your pattern is to see a pebble. I'm going back to this analogy again, to see when there is a pebble that has been thrown into the water and the ripple is coming out. When you notice that your pattern is to take that pebble and to make it mean it is a boulder, or when there is flat, calm water, to go and look for a fucking boulder and to throw a boulder into the water and to feel like you are drowning because of the huge wave it makes. I will describe this a different way, but this is a pattern. It is a pattern I see a lot of people do, and it is a pattern that will keep you stuck perpetually until you break this pattern. Another way that I describe this often, but the way I describe it to this client is actually what happens then is we feel like we are drowning, and we forget that we are drowning by our own making. We are getting in our own way. We're literally taking a pebble and making it a boulder, or there's nothing, it's flat water. We are finding a boulder and throwing it in the water and then drowning under the wave. Or we're in like 2 inches of water, we're splashing around. I joke with my clients sometimes. I'm like, you're in the kiddie pool in 2 inches of water, acting like you're drowning. You just need to stand up, right? We do this thing where we create these huge stories and these huge problems. But what happens when we do this, when this is our pattern, is we have to spend so much time and energy fighting in that water, right? If we think we're drowning, it is so much energy, right? There's so much work there. We get so worked up and we spend a lot of time and a lot of energy. That means all of our attention goes there. So where our focus goes, where our attention goes, that's what creates our results. If it doesn't matter if it is a self-created wave, if it is self-created, drowning is probably not the best example, but we're just going with that here. It does not matter if that is self-created or if someone else created it. If you are splashing around in that and that is all you are fixated on, that is all you will spend your time on, and it is very, very, very tough to move forward in business when your business needs you to take a bunch of action over here, when you are so focused on just not drowning and you're doing that to yourself. I'm going to use a better example because the drowning example is, I just don't like that because of the implications. The other example I give to my clients is what a lot of us will do, and again, I'm not calling anyone out. I literally spent so long in my business doing this. This is why I have a coach. This was some of the work I had to do at the start. This is something I've gotten really good at, but I wasn't good at it at the start. What I used to do, and some of this is based on having trauma, some of this is based on how my brain is wired, right? This is stuff that we just have to work through. What I did so often is and this is very much a trauma response, I was so concerned about potential threats, right? We're all wired to look for potential threats, that I would either look for a very minor potential threat, it would be like the tiniest little thing, and I would latch onto it, and I would dig the biggest hole in the world around this tiny little potential threat. And I'll give you guys some examples in a second, or men and ladies, I should say. But then what happened is I was spending all of my time looking for a potential problem, digging a massive hole, and then I was stuck in the bottom of a hole. So I just spent all of my time digging myself out of the hole until I got back to dry land or solid land. And then I could finally figure out what my business actually needed for me to focus on. And I was wondering why things were taking me so long. Well, the reason things were taking me so long, the reason I was having a hard time getting results, it was sort of like that dog in that cage. The cage was open. I wasn't being shocked, right? There's not actually going on. But I was spending all of my time digging holes and filling holes instead of leaving the cage, right? Or instead of being on land, like just focusing on the actions my business actually needed. The other thing I got really good at doing, and I'll just use myself as an example because I don't want to call anybody out. I think it's just easier that way. And this is very much a trauma response, but even when things were good, and so when there wasn't a little tiny problem that I was making bigger and digging bigger, even when things were good, it felt so uncomfortable to me. It felt so like things can't possibly be okay. This is really stressful. And so I would look for and create problems. This is sort of like taking the boulder and throwing it into the water. And so I would find problems. I would literally find problems and create them, dig a big hole. But the same thing, this would really slow me down and slow my momentum down because all of my time and all of my time in coaching as well. And there's nothing wrong with it. I love my coach for supporting me with this. But this one, we had to spend all of our coaching time. I had to spend all of my journaling time. All of my time was focused on, I've got this big, stressful, it is like wrecking my nervous system, hole that I am digging that I now need to fix, and I now need to get back to neutral before I can go and work on my business. And really, what I have found with clients is when we can learn how to stop that pattern, we can identify the pattern and stop the pattern, and get better at not creating problems, get better at not digging holes, get better at catching when we're digging a hole so we don't have to dig it and fix it, then we can get to neutral. And I know I've talked about neutrality before, but I want you to understand why this makes all the difference if this is your pattern. If that is your pattern, you can get in your own way, right, forever. And it can be really frustrating because it can feel like you're working so hard and you're not getting results. But one of the reasons for that is you are working so hard, but you're not working really hard on what actually gets you results. You're working really hard on digging a hole and filling it. And you can do that forever. And when we can stop doing that, we get to neutral, we can actually look at our business and take a neutral look and say, what does my business need for me to get results? Look, all of our businesses have problems we need to solve. It doesn't matter how successful you are. It is, like we were talking about here, the industry changed in the past year and a half. Every business has had to pivot. Every business has had to step up their marketing game. Every business has had to make some adaptations. If you are still in business, whether you are conscious of this or aware of this or not, you have done this. Every business has done this. But that is really tough to do. Right? It's really tough to know what are the messaging changes I need to make? What are the marketing changes I need to make? It's really tough to look at your data and understand what your data is telling you. Right? This is more like, oh, that strategy doesn't work. Oftentimes it's not that your strategy doesn't work. It's because we're digging holes and filling them, and we're so jacked up over here, we can't get neutral enough to look at our strategy, to look at our data, to say, this much of it is working, and here's the opportunity. Here's the thing I need to refine. Here's the thing I need to learn. Here's the skill set I need to master. Here's the thing I need to improve upon. Here's the thing I need to do more of. Here's the thing I need to do less of. Right? We just aren't in the neutral landscape to be able to do that. And so with my clients, one of the biggest internal shifts, right, is remembering who the fuck you are. The other one is noticing if you have a pattern of digging holes and filling holes and getting stuck in that, because as long as you are stuck in that, it's not wrong. You are not a bad person. You are human. But as long as we are stuck in that, it is really tough to show up like a CEO in your business. And it is really tough to take the actions that actually move the needle forward. Because it is, I see the questions here. It is going to be really then tough to also see the right levers to press. Okay. Is it a pattern? Sorry, I just missed, NJ, if you had a question before this, I'd gotten a roll and I didn't see this. So NJ says, is it a pattern of struggle? Can you give a specific example of this? What do you mean by you are digging holes? And then Kate says neutrality is such a huge part of this. Yes, let me think of an example for you, NJ, and let me know if there was something there because the comments went away after this. So what's a good example of this? It's now been a second since I've done this. So I'm just taking one pause with my coffee, and I'll think of a good example for you. I'll think of a client example, but I just want to make sure I protect their confidentiality. So here's a good example of this. Actually, no, I can give a recent example. This is actually a great example. So I have two good recent examples. Let's see, which one do I want to use? I use this one. So I offer coaching consultations, as you all know, and I offer them regularly. And recently I was like, oh, this is interesting. I feel like I've been offering them a lot, and I feel like I'm not booking as many as I usually do. Now, past Kim, 6 years ago, Kim, would have been like, I'm not booking as many consultations as I want. Therefore, there must be a huge problem in my business. I suck. My coaching sucks. People don't like me, right? And so I would start digging a hole, and I would start making this about like, I don't know how to book consultations. No one likes me. My strategy is not working. Maybe I suck as a coach. Maybe I'm not good enough. Digging a hole of like, here are all of these huge, I would just like dig and dig and dig. Maybe I would make it mean my Facebook group didn't work anymore. Maybe I would make it mean my live streams suck. Maybe I would just find all of the reasons for why basically I was a human piece of dog shit. That's my personal tendency. I know other clients have other ways that they go, but I would just dig this huge, basically emotional hole, which, maybe a little victim-y, but it's just like, what that meant is for me to figure out what was really going on, I would first have to self-soothe, like I'm good enough and there's nothing wrong with me and people don't hate me and my Facebook group doesn't suck and my content, right? I would have to dig out of all of that when really what would be happening is I'm just a little stressed out because I want to book some consultations and it's not working the way I think it should. And so it's uncomfortable and it just feels way more comfortable for me because it feels like I'm doing something. Sometimes it's so weird how digging holes and bashing ourselves and making problems that don't exist feels very self-soothing to us because we have to think about how our brains are designed and wired. Our brains are wired to scan the horizon and to notice negative events 3 to 1. It is a self-protection mechanism. We actually feel, I think, a bit of self-soothing, especially if we have any kind of trauma with a capital T. I think it is actually quite soothing to our system to spot a problem and to start to focus on it because what it tells our brain is we are safe. You found the problem. Now you can go focus on that, right? That will keep you safe. I have quite a bit of trauma. So if I can find all these problems, right, it is actually very soothing to my nervous system. It is like, oh, I found all the problems. The anxiety can be gone. Here's all the shit I have to work on. But like, and maybe I feel like a horrible piece of shit, but like now I just know all the things I need to fix. It is very unsettling to my system if I can't find this problem. So that's what I mean by digging a hole. NJ, and just using myself as an example, because I didn't do that, because I could get to neutral, because I don't dig holes anymore, I was actually, oh, that's really interesting. Let me just take a look at my data. Let me see what's going on. And I was like, oh, so what I can see is a ton of people are clicking on my consultation. People aren't booking through. That just means there's something there I need to clarify on the page that people are seeing. And so I just rewrote the copy on the page for a consultation. And the next day, consultation started coming back through. Like, it was literally that simple. And so I'm sharing that here where it's like that because I didn't dig that hole. Otherwise, 6 years ago, Kim, I could have spent 6 months of coaching, and that wouldn't have been wrong. My coach wouldn't have been wrong. But I could have spent 6 months of coaching around all of the things I'm horrible, all of these holes I was digging, right? Because I needed to work through all of that to get to a neutral enough place to be able to look at the actual strategy and data. Whereas now, because I don't do that, and I coach clients around this, the quicker we can stop that pattern and the quicker we can get to neutral, the easier it is to actually look at what's in front of us. And usually, strategy is quite simple. Your results make sense. Your business will always give you the answers. Even if we feel stressed out, that's an emotional reaction. If we can get back to neutral, if we take a look at our business, even if we're not getting the results we want, it usually makes sense. And when we can get neutral and when we remember who the fuck we are, right, we're backing ourselves, when we trust ourselves to figure out, and when we're not digging holes, it is just so much easier for us to see what's going on. And so when we have a year like we have that has, I think, rocked a lot of people, when that year happens and things shift and we need to pivot, if we're not making that mean all of these horrible things or all these problems that we just make worse and worse and worse, if we're backing ourselves, right, remembering who the fuck we are, if we're neutral, it is just so much easier to be like, oh, so the online space is a little bit more saturated. Oh, okay. That means I probably need to do something to make sure that I stand out from the saturation. Oh, there's a little bit of a trust there's a little bit of a trust problem in our space. Or, oh, it is a buyer's market instead of a seller's market, right? I just need to make that's when we can start to make really smart strategic decisions where we can pivot really easily, and we don't end up having a problem. Okay, and Jay says that makes sense. I'm glad that makes sense. If you have a follow-up question, though, let me know, and I'm happy to give other examples. But I think this is just these two pieces. When I think about, I talk a lot about defining and owning your role as a CEO, and I think even that can sound nebulous sometimes. But when I think about being a CEO, I say that very intentionally. And what I think about in terms of being a CEO is exactly what we're talking about here. When it's not about being perfect. It's not about like, I always feel like a badass boss bitch, right? I mean, that's fun if you do, but it's not that. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm always super, super confident in every single thing. And I just know I'm going to make $1 million next week and like manifest it like that. I mean, that's cool if you are. It's cool if you're high vibe all the time. That's not what I mean at all. When I talk about your role as a CEO and what I coach clients around, what I see really turn my clients' businesses around and get them big results. My clients get such incredible results. The results I was sharing here, these are clients who came to me this was a client who like her business had, I've had a couple clients this year, their business has just dried up and we've turned them around completely. I've had over 30 clients make 10K months, 60 clients make 6 figures. Many clients scale to multi-6 figures. 3 clients scale to $1 million. Many clients scale to 500, 700K, 250K per year. I have a small roster of 20 to 25 one-on-one clients with very little turnover, right? Clients work with me for 3, 4, 5 years. A big reason for that is what we're talking about here. These are the internal shifts that help them to think and show up like a CEO. Thinking and showing up like a CEO, the way I think about it is it really just means we are backing ourselves and we trust ourselves. And that is what we were talking about, right? That's remembering who the fuck you are. And that means we trust ourselves to figure things out. That doesn't mean we trust ourselves to be perfect. That doesn't mean we have confidence in everything before we've done it. It means we have confidence in ourselves to figure things out. And we have confidence in ourselves, or we have confidence in strategy and in business. That these are just really practical things that work. And then it's exactly what we're talking about here. We have confidence in ourselves to be human. All of us are going to dig holes. It doesn't matter how evolved you are, how much mindset work you've done. You're a human. You are from time to time going to make a pebble, a boulder, or you're going to go dig for a boulder or find a boulder to make that big wave, or you're going to dig a hole from time to time. But the big difference is, and what I coach my clients on, and what I think about as being a CEO is, can we start to notice that this is a pattern and that this is not truth and reality? Right? That's the big difference. Can we notice when we are making that little pebble or even the big boulder that the industry has thrown into the water, when we can start to notice that the stories we are spinning out on, the holes that we are digging, are self-created, and that is a pattern. When we can start to notice that pattern, we can start to pattern interrupt. And when we can start to learn how to get back to neutral, doesn't mean we're neutral 24/7. I am not neutral 24/7. I am a very self-regulated human. I have done a whole lot of work in therapy and with coaching, and I'm not neutral 24/7. But my time gap between getting spun out and getting back to neutral, my ability to catch that, shift that, rearrange that, and change that, my time from I'm knocked down to getting back up has just gotten so short. Sometimes it is literally seconds or minutes. Sometimes it's a little bit longer, but it has just gotten so short. And not that it's about that time, but I just know the more I can condense that time, the quicker I can get back up, get to neutral. That is being a CEO, right? That ability is being a CEO, because then when I can be neutral, I can look at my business, I can treat it like a business, right? I trust myself to figure shit out, and I trust myself, and I trust that strategy works and that business works. That's when it's really easy to start to look at what is actually going on. Because when I'm neutral as a CEO, and this is maybe like the third bonus shift my clients make, what we start to think about, and what I always start to think about, is results are not guaranteed. It's not like, I think we have this fucked up thing in our online space where, and excuse my French, but I get mad at this because I think it really makes people feel like they're doing something wrong. And I think it takes a lot of smart business owners and spins them out. But I think we have this screwed up thing in our online space where the teaching is like, if you're a good boss bitch and you're a good CEO, or whatever the language is that we're using, that means if you have a good strategy, it works 100% of the time, and you show up and results happen. And if you're really good, they just happen really, really super fast, and there's never a problem, and it happens all at once. And that's just simply not how business works at all, like at all. And I think it is just so harmful and detrimental. And so when I talk about being a CEO, and I talk about these internal shifts and showing up like a CEO, it's being that CEO who can be neutral and who can not dig holes, but who can also understand what business means, treat your business like a business, and understand that we are always testing things in business, and things are not guaranteed in business, but strategy can start to make things really predictable. That's what's beautiful about strategy. That's what's beautiful about data. And when we can be a CEO that's neutral, we can start to look at things and see business always makes sense. Results always make sense. Data always makes sense. And data can be the numbers, right? They can be your click-through rates or your open rates or your conversion rates, but data can also be how are we feeling, like what are customers and clients telling us, right? We get data in different ways. And when we are neutral enough as a CEO to look at that, you're always going to get the answer to the next best step to take to turn things around to get results in your business. And when you can do that, that is coming back to, that just reinforces the self-trust and remembering who the fuck you are. That's how you turn things around in business. That's how you get big results in business. There is no secret. There is no like magic pill. There is no, if you do this thing, this guarantees there will never be another wave in the industry. There will, like I was telling my client, what we've experienced this year, whether this was your best year in business or your worst year in business, you will experience that again. Just like if last year, let's say this year was your best year in business, but last year was your worst year in business, whatever you experienced last year, you will probably experience that again, right? Because business ebbs and flows. But when we can learn how to not ebb and flow emotionally with our business, that's when we can even that out and continue to grow or to get better and better results. And so I am amped up, y'all. I get really passionate about this, but I've just seen through my own business and through my clients what a game changer this is. And this also just starts to simplify everything, because otherwise we start chasing, we give our power away, we start chasing so many things as opposed to seeing, usually most of the answers are in front of us. Usually most things are working better than we think they are. Usually when things aren't working, it is a pebble that has been, even when it's a crappy year in the industry, it's maybe a rock. It's rarely is it a boulder. If it's a boulder and it's a true boulder, then oftentimes that is off, like that's because of other things, right? Like that is, COVID happened and you have a restaurant and people can't come in person. And even then people pivoted, right? But that is, or you have an offer that just was never validated or that you don't actually want to deliver, right? Usually when there's actually a boulder, it is for things that don't actually have as much to do with the industry or your strategy or your work as we think they do. So those are the two internal shifts. I would really invite you to think about those. don't be mean to yourself if they don't come overnight, but this is how we learn how to identify our role as a CEO, step into our role as a CEO, treat our business like a business. This is what will turn your results around. And if you're having great results, this is what blows up your results. I have stuff all of the time in my business that we just started running ads. I just started testing those. I want to knock on wood. I'm getting such a low cost per lead. It is wild to me. But even there, right, that has just been a learning curve. That has been something where I couldn't be confident in ads before I ran them. I am now. I had to be confident, remember who the fuck I am, and that I trust myself to learn this and to figure this out. And then I had to be confident that I wasn't going to dig holes and create problems when they didn't work immediately 5 seconds after, or I had a couple that I spent some money on that weren't as good, that I could then instead be neutral and take, maybe that's even a better example, right? Instead of just spinning out and be like, ads don't work, or ads suck, or I suck at ads, or whatever, all the things there, to say, no, ads are just inherently something that work, and this is something I would like to learn to have as a tool in my back pocket, and so that I can support clients. I trust myself. I back myself. I'm remembering who the fuck I am. Of course I can figure this shit out. I'm not going to dig a hole here, because the first time I ran ads, I actually got my account shut down, or my ad shut down. That could have spun me out. Instead, I was like, no, I'm going to be neutral here and figure out why that happened, which was actually a really solvable thing. It's because some of my copy was triggering Facebook flags. So I was like, great, I can figure out, this is a very solvable thing. I just need to figure out how to rewrite my ads in a way that doesn't piss Facebook and Meta off. Super solvable. And we solved that, right? And then we're getting good results from them. That's just another example for you there. When you can learn to do this, this changes everything for you in your business. And then it really is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you get all the results you want. NJ says, great info, Kim. That makes all the sense. I'm so glad. I'm going to wrap this up because we're already at the hour mark and I'm actually losing my voice now. Thank you all for hanging with me. If this is something you want support with, if you're hearing this and you're like, okay, I love this, I could really use support getting to neutral. I could really use support remembering who the fuck I am, learning how to trust myself, learning how to get to neutral, learning how to discern, is this a pebble or a boulder? Is this a real problem or am I making up this problem? Because I think sometimes we don't always know, right? We kind of gaslight ourselves. Is this actually something I should be paying attention to? And I'm telling myself it's not a problem. And if you can help me get to neutral, can you also help me figure out my strategy, not just how to map it out, but how to figure out what are those tweaks I need to make? How do I look at my data? How do I look at what's going on? So I can make the right adjustments to build momentum, to get results, to get fully booked, to fill my programs, to have a great cost per lead with your ads, or to make consistent 10K months like my client who just had her first 10K month, or to make consistent 20, 30K months, whatever that is for you. I would love to support you. I just updated the copy on my consultation page. I will drop a link for a free coaching consultation, and what it'll say on this page, and what I will reflect to you is, I've been fully booked for 5.5 years. I have very few limited spots that open up, and so it is really important to me that I work with someone who is a good fit, that I know and I believe I can support. Not only because I'm fully booked and I have limited spots that open up, but that's also why I have the business I do, why clients get the results they do. It's because I really focus on fit, and I love to have these calls as much for me as for you. Yes, they are for you as well. I've had people say that they have gone on to get clients based on what we talked about in this consultation alone. I had a client who said she would have paid $1,000 for it. It is a consultation and not a free coaching call. However, there is no way you will not walk away with having clarity from these calls. I think they're really valuable, but they are also for me. It really truly is for me as much as it is for you, because I want to make sure anyone I'm working with, anyone I'm partnering with, that we're a great fit, that I believe I can support you and help you get results. So if the way I coach, or I guess you don't know the way I coach, the way I teach here, if you're feeling here like this might be the type of support you're looking for, if this feels like this might be a fit and you want to see if that's true, I would love to have you join me for a free consultation. We can see what it look like to work together, discuss my different coaching options for you, and then discuss upcoming availability. I do have some spots opening up throughout the end of the year for strategy intensives, and then one-on-ones, I think towards November, we have one spot opening up. So I would love to connect with you. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. I love you all so much, and I will be back next week with another topic for you. Bye.